Hello and welcome everyone. Welcome back to another Pushing Film live stream. Thanks for joining today. This is a video about the Olympus point and shoot cameras known as the AF-1 and AF-1 Super. There's two variants of them. I'm going to talk a little bit about both of these cameras today and just sort of what's good about them, what's not so good, how do they compare to the much more popular Olympus Mu series, the MJU, and so the Mu 1 and Mu 2. A lot of these cameras, by the way, are known by different names throughout different regions. So I think in America, they may be known as the Olympus Infinity or Epic or names like that. But I'm going by the names of the, I guess, Japanese or Australian versions of them. AF-1, AF-1 Super, Olympus Mu, Mu 2, and AF-10. Some of the other variants of them. And I think there's also Stylus Epic, which is a version of the Mu. So with all that out of the way, I hope this all makes sense to you, and if you need to, you might need to cross-reference some of these camera names throughout the video. But once again, thanks for joining. I hope everything's working all right. With these live streams, it can be a little bit iffy sometimes, and as far as I can see from my end, I've got some good audio. The chat seems to be working. I've got Punk in the chat saying, yes, it is the Infinity 2 also. Yeah, okay. So, to give you a bit of background on these point-and-shoot cameras, first one to come out was the regular, out of these two, the regular AF-1. So that's this one here. Came out in the 80s, mid to late 80s. It's the AF-1. The version I have is called the quartz date, meaning it has the date back on it. I'm not sure how far into the current time that date back goes. I've never put a battery in it. But yeah, the great thing about these cameras is they have the Olympus Zuiko, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Zuiko, 35mm f1 2.8 lens, which is great for a point and shoot camera. Autofocus, auto advance, built-in flash. But the big caveat about this particular camera, one of the things I don't like about it is that it doesn't have much control. You cannot turn off the flash. That's the biggest thing about this that I'm not a fan of. The 35 2.8 Olympus lens is a great lens. And as far as most people speculate, this is the same lens that is in the Olympus Mu series or Stylus Epic, whatever you want to call it, which is what is one of the reasons that makes the Mu so popular. So how does this camera compare, assuming it has the same lens potentially? We'll talk more about that a little bit pretty soon. So the other version I have is the Olympus AF-1 Super. I actually got this one first and I've used it a lot more. But that's a comparison of both of them there. So let's just open them up. Yeah, Olympus AF-1 and AF-1 Super. The AF-1 Super came out later in the early 90s, I would say. Same lens, as you can see there. The same 35mm f2.8 lens. And same basic build structure. However, sorry, that autofocus is going to be difficult there. The Olympus AF Super, this one, has more controls. You can turn off the flash. So that's quite important. It also has a couple of other things like the macro mode and some other continuous shooting mode, which I've never used, and the timer. The normal AF-1 had a timer, but the great thing about this is that you can cycle through different flash modes, including force off, because otherwise the flash will just fire automatically with the AF-1. All right, just checking the chat. I've got Adam Tuck saying hello from PA Sydney. Hey, good to have someone from Photographers Anonymous Sydney. So anyway, yeah, thanks for joining, guys. I know this is a bit different with the live streams. Doing a camera review live, weird, yeah, I know, but I guess for something like this, it's a camera that I'm not too knowledgeable about, I guess. And the other thing is that there's really not too much to it. And I guess doing these mini reviews live is a good way to kind of put out reviews that would otherwise have been, too hard to make as a structured thing. So yeah, I hope you like it. Let me know your thoughts on this whole thing, because I did the one on the Canon EOS 500. That went really well. People seem to still watch it because I left it online and they refer back to it as if it's a review. However, the disadvantage for you watching this post-stream is that it is a bit slower paced and I'm going to ramble on a little bit more. There's no editing involved. So yeah, my apologies. And if you are not watching this live, I guess you can just sort of skip through, put the speed up, skip ahead to the photo samples, which I'll be showing pretty soon in a few minutes. And yeah, feel free to let me know your thoughts. But anyway, these are both really great point and shoot camera options. They're a little bit overlooked because of the popularity of the Olympus Mu. I think in summary, they're worth the price if you get a good deal on one, but they're not worth it if you're getting overcharged in the realm of, you know, let's say the $200 that I've seen them go for on eBay and such, even higher. I've seen them in stores, like actual physical camera stores, for about $250 or more, which is a bit much, I think. And I'll explain why based on the performance of these cameras. And just looking at the chat, JL Cruz is saying, mine is Olympus AF-1 Super Quartz Date. Right, yeah, so you got the Quartz Date version of the Super. My Super is the non-date version, but I do like that it is, you know, it has the feature to turn off the flash. And you're saying it's weather sealed and can also do macro and control flash. Yeah, so I've gone over that earlier in the video if anyone missed it. Some of the basic differences between the AF-1 and AF-1 Super. The main thing being the ability to control the flash and some of the other things that JL just mentioned there in the live chat. But yeah, back on that comparison to the Olympus Mu, the thing about the Mu is it goes for a lot more money and it's a lot more popular. Now, is this just as good, assuming it has the same lens? Let's look into that a little bit further. So the lens on these being the 35mm 2.8, I would say is either the exact same or very similar to certain versions of the Mu 1, perhaps, maybe even the Mu 2. But there's a distinct difference. If you can see it there as that kind of reflection, let's put that in front of the camera there, just so you guys can see it. You'll notice that these AF-1 series cameras have a plastic cover in front of the lens. There's a clear plastic lens in front of the actual lens inside. As far as I know, the Olympus Mu series doesn't have that. So in theory, even if the lens is the exact same inside, having that plastic extra layer in front of the lens in both of these, AF-1, AF-1 Super, is probably not advantageous to getting a clearer image. With the Mu, it actually has the moving lens element comes out, protrudes a little bit, and I think it has a glass front element. So anyone who's watching, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or leave your you know, your knowledge in the comments. But that is one distinct thing that would be an advantage for the Olympus Mu or stylus. The other thing is that besides the actual lens, there are a lot of other advantages of the Olympus Mu that would make it functionally better, including a better autofocus system. So with either of these AF-1 series cameras, you probably won't get as many autofocus point detections as something that was made a lot later. So these being, you know, mid 80s and early 90s, the Mu came out more of mid-late 90s, especially if you're talking about the Mu 2. So they would have a lot better performance in terms of, let's say, autofocus. I won't say a lot better, but just better performance in terms of exposure, autofocus, that has some more features like the spot metering. The Mu is smaller as well. These aren't as compact as the Mu, the little clamshell Mu. They're still pretty compact. I could still pocket either of these cameras. But there are a lot of functional differences between the Mu and that lens issue I mentioned, having the plastic cover on these versions, and some of the different weatherproofing options, which was variable between all the different versions of the camera. So that's the summary. The lens may be just the same, so the potential quality of image you can get from the AF-1 and AF-1 Super may be just as good as you can get from the Mu. However, a lot of the functions may cause you to miss more shots compared to a Mu. And that plastic layer on these versions may not be advantageous, you know, and conducive to as good of an image quality as you would get on the actual Mu camera. So I hope that clears up some of that difference and, you know, whether or not it's worth it for you to pay more for a Mu. Generally speaking, I don't think it is. If you get a good price on one of these AF-1 cameras, go for it. Yeah, you can sometimes find them in like thrift stores, op shops, whatever, for really low prices because they're overlooked. And even if you look at eBay Japan, they still go for decent prices, somewhere around, you know, 100 Australian dollars maybe, or 50 to 100 Australian dollars if the condition's not great. And someone in the comments just saying depends on the situation of shooting, but it's near similar quality Olympus. Yeah, so there you go. That also gives you a good summary. in my personal experience, they're great cameras. So let's look at some photos and give you an idea of what you can expect to get out of the AF-1. Mind you, most of what I'm showing you will be from the AF-1 Super, because that's what I've mainly used over the years. I've had this since 2015 or 16. So I'm going to open up Lightroom here. Let me just make sure my chat still shows. And look at some images. All right. Thanks again for joining, guys. I'm really starting to enjoy doing these live streams and seeing some of the regulars pop up, you know, some of the regular usernames that I notice. So I'm very happy with the TVS. Leave my wallet alone. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. And then what that person is mentioning is because I have a Contax TVS now, and that's what I've mainly used. I'll talk more about that towards the end of the video. But anyway, with these images, I hope you guys can see the Lightroom library all right here. Should be fine. But I've got about a roll of film's worth of various image taken from various rolls of film. And it says 40. There's a couple of double ups here, and I'll explain why. Because if we look at some of these scans, I need to make a bit of a disclaimer first. And that is that some of these scans are not very good quality. So mind you, if you're looking at these scans, don't let it be a full reflection of the quality that you can get out of this camera or these cameras, because as you can see in this info area here, this was from 2016, and it was a pretty low resolution, 1800 pixels on the long end, and that was on a Fuji Frontier that you know, may not have done the best job scanning. And just to kind of show you what I mean, this is a rescan of that same frame. It's just still loading. Yeah, you should be able to see the full resolution now, but that's at 6,000 pixels, and it's done on a method that hasn't left it looking as, you know, sort of crunchy and harsh as that previous version. Okay, so keep that in mind. And just to show you again, this is another straight scan that I had from this roll of film back in 2016, Kodak Ektar. Not very good, but that's a rescan of it. So keep that in mind. I've tried to rescan some of the worst frames I have here, but I couldn't do it for all of them. So just looking at these in survey view, you can kind of see the left ones being the original scans, and then some of the rescans on the right. So don't let that throw you off. And just looking back at the comments, do you edit your scanned images? Generally speaking, I do a light bit of editing. I try and correct color balance. With these two that you're seeing on the screen now, I haven't corrected them. I wanted to leave them so you could see the difference. So obviously with that scan down the bottom left here, very blue. I didn't bother to correct it. This was so bad with the highlights clipped out there that I just rescanned it using Negative Lab Pro and the Essential Film Holder with my DSLR. And if you want more information on that, on this whole editing, scans, rescanning frames, I have a whole video about that. It's the last video I put on the channel. It's called Fixing Bad Film Scans. So if you want more information on that, there's a link in the description of this video that you can check out. I might add a card to this once I finish streaming and upload it and publish the video as well. But yeah, just keep that in mind as we go through. All right, so the ones with the lower resolution in the information here, if you are curious, sorry, I keep changing views there. With the lower resolution like this, 1800-ish pixels, they would probably be a low-res scan that I had a long time ago where I didn't pay too much attention and just paid for the cheap scans. Whereas if they have a higher resolution like this, either I scanned them myself or got a better scan done at a lab or something like that. And that's, you know, to help you have an indication of some of the potential of the camera. But anyway, I hope that clears things up. Hey, Donovan, welcome to the chat, man. It was good to bump into you the other day. There's something about the AF-1 and Super design that looks really good to me. Probably just the 80s design styling that I love. Yeah, same. I really love that 80s point and shoot camera design from all the Japanese manufacturers especially. But yeah, let's look at some photos. And yeah, just what I touched on before. This is a low-res scan, so not all these scans are bad. I tried to rescan some of them, but I didn't have time to do all of the samples I picked out. And this one's pretty good. It's low-res, but it's nice. This was done by Bic Camera in Japan, and it was a photo taken in Japan, obviously. You may have seen this in the Japan vlog, but as you can sort of see from this camera straight away, it's a decent point and shoot. You can get some great colors and sharpness out of it. There is a fair bit of vignetting and softness around the corners. It is prone to flare, but for a point and shoot camera, especially having that 35mm prime lens, you can get some decent performance out of it. So this is the AF-1 Super, and I think maybe Fuji Superior Premium. And I've started off with some sample images of just general scenery back in Perth there. Again, in Japan with the Superior Premium. You can see, like, it's a low-res scan, but there's plenty of potential sharpness you can get. Heavy vignetting in the corners, right into the corners, which is common with any plastic point-and-shoot camera, especially pretty much any point-and-shoot camera. There is flaring, there is a bit of like haziness in the highlights, but it's very decent. This one's in New Zealand. This was a scan I did on Negative Lab Pro, and you can see it's got a nice quality to it. Not the sharpest lens. So that's what makes me think that maybe the fact that it has that plastic in front of the lens, from what I've seen from the Olympus Mu with the same 35mm 2.8, or supposedly the same, that seems to have sharper results. Even some of the other point-and-shoot cameras I've used, like the Samsung AF Slim, is a bit sharper than this. So this does have a bit of softness, has that hit vignetting, but still very nice performance that you can get out of it. Ken, have you seen the Infinity Telly? Similar body with 2 lenses. I have. I think here that was called the AF Twin, if I'm not mistaken. I actually had one of those. I bought it from an op shop. Didn't really end up using it. I thought it was a bit gimmicky, having those 2 lenses. But from what I've heard, they are actually pretty good. I just, have a lot of cameras. In fact, I'm probably selling both of these cameras pretty soon. Another shot from New Zealand there in Milford Sound. Don, only the good bits, Josh. You haven't missed much, Josh, don't worry. I'm just showing some samples from the AF-1 Super that I've taken over the years. So some of these go back to 2016, as you can see in the date there, another low res scan, but it wasn't too bad. This one's a bit higher res that I did with NLP, Kodak Ektar, and you can see it does get some pretty decent performance out of it. You still have that vignette no matter what, softness around the corners, but it's okay. They're good cameras. This one's in Japan on a better film, I guess. This is Kodak 250D, if I remember correctly, and this looks sharper. I think I scanned this myself on a Fuji Frontier SB500, so there's a lot of resolution. You can see the sharpness really picks up in the center there. If you have the film to match, something like Ektar or Kodak Vision performs really well. So I'm just going to keep cycling through some of these photos from Japan just to give you guys an idea of some of these scenery, landscape type of photos. This was a nice scene here. This GTR parked in the fog in Japan. That's Sarah up in the snow in the Fox Village. And yeah, just a few more shots of this nature. This one's not such a great scan from New Zealand, but this is a little bit better. Also New Zealand. Yeah, so that gives you an idea of some of the scenery type of photos. And these are all taken on the AF-1 Super. So if you ever spot this camera in an op shop for $5 or $10, pick it up. All right. So next up, I've got some more street photography based stuff, and including this black and white on Acros. Another one from New Zealand. So yeah, for a point and shoot camera, it's not bad. This scan isn't great, and even the photo kind of shows some of that roughness. If a lot of your important information is in the corners, I suppose this camera won't be the best because it does soften up in the corners and get a little bit weird and crunchy. So I wouldn't really use it generally for something where you need to make big prints, but it is good for happy snaps and anything where the corners aren't important. So something like street photography where there's nothing critical in the corners, even though this is blurry due to the low shutter speed, it kind of shows that point that I was just making there. Whereas here, also you can see there's something in the corners there where the out of focus areas don't look very good. Compared to something like this portrait, it's not as bad because there's nothing too critical in the corners. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure how the Mu compares in that sense, but it could be to do with that plastic cover. And just another old shot from Melbourne in 2016. Nice color here. So you can again see that the lens can provide enough color and contrast and sharpness for most everyday use. This is another street photography style of photo. Another one here. This is a much better scan, as you can see there from the higher resolution. This guy doing a handstand. But yeah, it's not bad for a point and shoot especially. So let me know your thoughts, guys. What do you think of this camera? Does anyone here watching have one or have something similar? And if not, how does the performance of this compare to a point and shoot camera that maybe you've used or that you own? Because I know that it really depends on what you have to compare this to. With myself, I'm most recently using the Contax TVS, as I mentioned. So that's my new kind of standard for the best performance I've gotten out of a point and shoot before. But I've never owned anything like a T3 or whatever with a prime lens. But yeah, this AF-1 is really nice. Like, some of that softness does lend itself well to kind of scenery like this, where you have that kind of, you know, dreamy vibe to it. And now what I want to show you is some of the low light performance. So one of the main reasons you might want a camera with an f2.8 lens is for that low light performance, especially like something like TVS doesn't even have a 2.8 lens. So if you find one of these cheap, it can be a real advantage if you shoot a lot of stuff in low light. Such as these night shots from Japan that you're seeing on the screen here. This one again on Kodak Vision 250, and beautiful performance. Like, it's actually really sharp. Something about that combination of 250D, developed in C41, scanned on the SP500 manually, which I did at the rental scanner at Film Never Die, came out really nice. So yeah, another one from the same roll, from that Japan trip in 2017 for anyone who's seen the vlog. And yeah, it helps having 2.8. This is handheld, mind you. All of these shots were handheld. And you can see there's a bit of motion blur. The shutter probably went down to a 15th, but because it's a fairly bright night scene, it's still considered low light, the camera still held up pretty well. But when you don't have enough light, the flash is where, you know, it's going to come in and rescue you there. So let's look at some photos with flash. Again, from Japan, you can see the flash. It works fine. It does its job. Again, you got that harshness in the corners, if there's anything there. But, you know, the centers are nice and sharp. The flash illuminates anything within a few meters fairly well. And these old Japanese dudes we ran into on the street in pre-COVID days, where you probably wouldn't be doing this anymore. Yeah, and just some more low light shots here from The Killers concert back in 2017 as well, when they were here in Australia. Again, showing just nice performance and focusing close. So the good thing about these is you can lock focus. You just half press to lock focus, as I did with this situation. Focused on these phones, or this phone here at least, and then the background goes blurry. Having that 2.8 lens, I'm assuming the camera would have shot wide open. Mr. Brandon Flowers here. So pretty decent to have a little plastic camera in your pocket like this and be able to get good shots out of it in low light. From the same concert, and a few more shots showing flash here. You know, this ridiculous selfie. Anything that's really close to the camera, obviously with my face there, it's going to be pretty blown out, but optimal range is about 1 or 2 meters, I think. Probably 2 to 3 meters actually for the flash. Another shot with flash here. And the last photo I have to show. And don't ask me what's going on with this situation here. But yeah, again, you can see the flash does help in those low light situations, especially combined with that f2.8 lens. Cool, so I hope those samples give you an idea of what you can expect out of this lens, guys. If anyone has any questions specific to any of these shots or any functions or features of the cameras, let me know. That's pretty much most of what I wanted to go over with these cameras. But I'm open to hearing your opinions. So if you are in the market for a point and shoot and you want something with a prime lens with good low light performance, the Mu is not the be all and end all. There are other options like these AF-1 cameras. There's also a camera called the AF-10, which has an f3.5 lens. f3.5 lens point and shoot cameras are often very good as well. And I would definitely recommend them. I had an AF-10 for a while. Performance is really nice, probably even a little bit sharper than these. But as you can see, these can perform really well. So I'm just going to go over the chat, see if I've missed anything. Doesn't look like it. Cool. So yeah. Olympus AF-1. Good options. Don't sleep on it. If you spot one in a second-hand store, go for the AF-1 Super if you can. If you want to be able to turn off the flash and not have it go off every time it thinks it needs to go off. Performance is generally similar. Features and lenses and flashes are probably identical in these cameras. The build is very similar. You do get that extra control on the AF-1 Super. And there are versions that come with the date back. So the AF-1 I have has that quartz date back on it, which is cool if the date still goes up to 2021, which I doubt. I'm not sure about this one. I've never put a battery in it, as I mentioned. It does have a focus lock feature over there. It's weird. I don't trust it. You have to press it rather than hold it, and I'm not sure how well it works. But it is there. I much prefer having the ability to just half press the shutter as a focus lock. But this was the mid 80s. Maybe they hadn't thought of that yet, or thought it wasn't going to be that popular. So that's the AF-1 Super for you. At the moment, I've been using the Contax TVS. I've done a previous live stream on my first impressions of this camera where I gave some sample images. This is a zoom camera by comparison, but it does have an f3.5 lens at the widest aperture, a much higher build quality, a lot more features, a lot more control. So this has become my main point and shoot camera. And for a prime lens point and shoot camera, I've been thinking I'm going to keep the Samsung AF-1 Slim and sell both of these cameras off. So if anyone is watching at the time of releasing this video or close to it, which is the 10th of April, check in with me on Instagram, see if I still have them for sale. I'm going to probably sell them both off. I'm trying to clear out some cameras. Since having bought the TVS, I have no need for all the extra point and shoot cameras I have. I just want to have one good zoom and one good prime lens point and shoot. So I'm going to sell both of these off. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you've been enjoying everything on the channel. I appreciate all the continued support. And yeah, it's been great. So I hope to keep doing more of these live streams. It's good to just be able to go on, not have to edit, put the video out, and get some of your opinions as I actually do the stream. So thanks again for watching. Let me know if you have any thoughts, and enjoy the rest of your day. Catch you later, guys.